RAW and JPEG. Oh, not the light glasses, those are the ones. I know you all want a shirt like this. I've got it out again, sun's shining, summer's come. So RAW and JPEG are two different ways your camera will save a file, save the photograph. Well, I'd like you to think of a piece of meat, a nice delicious steak. Now, the RAW is that piece of steak that hasn't been cooked, and the JPEG is as it comes from a restaurant, and there it is, cooked by the chef. Now, once it's cooked, but with the RAW that isn't cooked, I can then put it into my computer and I can change it a lot more than I could if it was a JPEG. I know you're going to say I've got Photoshop, I can make it lighter and darker, change the colour, but believe me, with a RAW image you can do an awful lot more. The danger, the big danger with it, is if you're going to cook it yourself, you've got to make sure you're a good cook, so you've got to know what you're doing. But first, let's have a look how to set the camera up. Now as I go through the menu on my camera, we come to quality. So we go into quality, and that brings up what type of file we're going to want the camera to shoot. And in this case it's set to maximum RAW and maximum JPEG, the best quality in both. I can turn one off very simply by doing that, so that way it's only shooting a JPEG, and I can ask it to only shoot a RAW by doing that. But I use both, and I'll explain why later. And I always shoot in top quality, and the reason for that is if ever I get the shot that could be used all over the world, I want it in the best quality. You never know, you might go out in the street and see something and take a shot that no one else has ever done. And wouldn't that be awful to have it in low quality? Now that's how my, what is it, a 7D, Canon 7D is set up. Different cameras will have different ways of doing it. And most point and presses won't allow you to do RAW anyway. So it's a question, if you've got a camera that allows you to do it, it'll be presented in different ways. You'll have to look at your instruction books. Now let's have a look at the way it's presented on the computer screen, so you can identify the difference between the JPEG image and a RAW image. Well, I'll open up the files. There we go. This is the hard disk. That's the 7D, and this is everything that's on the 7D. Now you can see that here you've got the CR2 file, and that's the RAW file, and just underneath it with the same number is the JPEG file. So you see they've got the same number. Now it's a CR2 on the Canon, but it will be different for every make of camera. I think the Nikon is NEF, if I remember rightly, and the Pentax is PEF, I think. I'll just have to check. Yeah. So those will be the different files you'll see. So that's how they'd normally be shown: JPEG, RAW, JPEG, RAW, JPEG, RAW, etc., all the way down. And that, oh, and then we come to the movie images at the bottom. But I don't like it like that. I prefer to have them all separated, so I just go to Arrange By and Kind. Now that will allow me, if I get my mouse out, that will allow me to separate all the RAW images from the JPEG images, from the movie images. I just find it easier that way, because then if I want to have a quick look, I just select some JPEG images, note down the numbers of the ones I like, then go back, find the same numbers in the CR2, and then do the final retouching. And I do that purely because it's a lot quicker opening a JPEG image to have a quick look than a RAW image, because of course the RAW image is heavier. Now we're going to have a look at some... I'm talking to the camera. Now we're going to have a look at two images, one done in RAW and one JPEG, and I'll show you how, I'll make it a very dark image, so I'll show you how I can get the exposure back right, and maybe the colour as well, with the RAW image that I won't be able to do in the JPEG. Now I've gone back to the side-by-side view, so we can see both of them together. Now I've clicked the JPEG image here, and you'll see it's 3.9 megabyte on the disk. So that's compressed, a compressed image to 3.9 megabyte. If I go onto the raw image, you'll see it's 20.3 megabyte. Now you'll see these images are very, very dark and very, very blue. I've deliberately way underexposed them and got the color balance right to the other end of the scale. So let's see what happens when we open up the raw image, and we do that just by double clicking, and it will open up Photoshop. This is the Photoshop raw processing window. Now what we do, we can change the color temperature, and we can make it lighter just by increasing the exposure, and I think you'll be quite amazed how easy that has come back. I can then go contrast and several other things that we might want to do, but that's for another lesson. I'm not going to show you how RAW works. This is just to explain what RAW is. Well, I've loaded the JPEG image. Here it is. It looks exactly the same as the raw image did, but let's go into the window and we'll arrange the two vertically so we get them side by side. Now here we can see on the right hand side is the raw that we've processed ourselves, we've cooked it ourselves, and here is the JPEG that came out the camera that we're going to try and recook in Photoshop so we get image adjustments. Now there are of course lots of ways of doing this. We're just going to brightness in the beginning and we'll try and lighten it. Now we can lighten it and it's coming quite well, isn't it? I'm quite surprised at that. So we go OK, and now we'll try and get some color back into the image, and I'll do that by going into color balance and I'll see what I can do. Well, it's obviously too blue, so I'll go into the yellow and I'll go into a bit of red. It's a little bit green in there, so is it green? Now we're having difficulty of getting anywhere near the right color. So let's try and get it a little lighter again. Well, I think enough of this. I think I'll go on and see how close I can get it, and then we'll have a look at the results together. Well, this is about as near as I could get it. Now it's really forced everything on the JPEG image on the left, whereas the colours on the right are in fact the right colours. That's the colour of the wall and that's the colour of the table. I haven't got the greens coming through to the magentas like I have on the other side. On the JPEG image, the back of the cat is looking magenta and the side of the face green. Considering they're opposite colours, there's not a lot I can do about it. I just couldn't get the one on the left right, but one on the left right. No, I just couldn't get the one on the left as good as the one on the right. Now let's have a look at it. If we enlarge and we go up to 100% on either of them, that's 100% on that one. Now let's go to 100% on this one. And there we are. Now what you can see is an amazing difference in the color, etc. Now they've both got noise. Now that noise is caused by them being light so much as I have, but I think the one on the right is absolutely convincing that raw is better. Now what about a very light image? Well, this is, I find, even more astounding. With a very light image, I drop the exposure. This is 2 stops overexposed. I drop the exposure down and I take the color temperature up a little, and I've even gone too far. Now look at that, how quickly that was done. That's what RAW is all about. Now I think all of us at some time or other have tried to darken an image that's too light. And JPEG, you've probably realized that the whites tend to go grey. Virtually no way of getting them back. That's because the information was thrown away when it was being processed in the camera. So RAW has that ability. It still has all the data information there in the file, and that's why it's such a heavy file. It's all hidden away. Now what are the pros and cons? Why do we want to shoot JPEG? Why should we shoot RAW? Well, RAW, it's got much more depth in the file. So we can do an awful lot more with it, as I showed you. The problem is it's an image that's 4 times the size of a JPEG image, so it takes up an awful lot more room on your memory disk. The camera also will be slower reacting. So if you're going to take lots and lots of pictures of sport, for example, bang, 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 then you're going to have to shoot in JPEG, because you're going to get to a point where the camera won't be able to buffer enough stuff to allow you to carry on shooting until it catches up. Now, don't get paranoid about JPEG, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that RAW, if you're doing fine art or super portraits, is so much better to work with. Now, this is Cartouche, just jumped up on me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it's taught you a little about JPEG and RAW, and I hope that you'll come and see us on itchyphoto.com, because that's becoming quite popular these days. And see you soon for the next lesson. Bye!